Hi, this is Kiana Miner. Welcome to Crazy Courage TV, where we are busting success myths and learning how to live more courageously. Today I'm so excited because we're going to be talking with Ashley. Ashley is a yoga teacher. She's an herbalist and she owns a yoga studio. So welcome, Ashley.
Thank you, Kiana, for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I know we're going to have an awesome conversation just looking at the things that you've studied over your life. So I'm excited. So we could start with the first question, which is really my way of having you introduce yourself to the audience. Could you tell us about your most courageous moment?
Hmm. I mean, there's been lots of leaps of faith, I think, throughout my life, but the biggest one was more recent. And it was actually opening up our yoga studio. I had been working and teaching at many different yoga studios in the area. Um, and, I had been studying yoga for, at that point, it was probably about maybe like 10 or 11 years. And I just was feeling like I couldn't really express the yoga that I wanted to teach. That the teaching environments, um, yeah, they, just like the voice that I wanted to have as a teacher was less and less. Was kind of I was having a harder time finding that voice in these other spaces. So my most courageous moment was when I met my now husband, and we started dating. And 3 months later, he moved from New York to DC, and we opened up Sky House Yoga. And then I had to let go of all of those stable jobs, all of my teaching jobs, everything that I had going. I had to take a big, courageous leap of faith and just say, like, I really believe in this. I really want to do this. I really love this person. And I know this can work. But the hardest thing for me was actually having to let go of the security of what I had already established. So, yeah, that was really huge. And every day I'm so glad I did it. I'm so grateful that I made that leap.
Awesome. And how long has it been now?
Sky House has been open for 3 years now.
Okay. That is so awesome. I love that because I think the leap of faith and letting go of security is probably the biggest part about courage, especially becoming an entrepreneur that a lot of people struggle with. So, if you can think back, I know it's been 3 years for you, but can you think of how did you get yourself to that moment where you were able to let go and sort of grasp onto something new?
Well, there's that Anais Nin quote that, the day came where, it was harder for the flower to stay tightly locked in its bud than the risk that it took to blossom. So I feel like I was really stressed out. I kept getting sick. So my health was like an indicator for me that I wasn't really walking my path. And yeah, my stress levels were just so high, and I was just constantly driving around, and I think yeah, like I think that sort of all of those indicators were kind of like little nudges, like it's time to do something different. It's time to make a change. And does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Yeah, and I totally agree with you because I left a stable job and started my own company. And I think that is like the pain of staying becomes, more it becomes more painful to stay than to leap. So you're willing to leap because you realize by staying you're suffering a whole different kind of pain. So
Exactly.
yeah, I agree with you. I love the fact that you combine yoga and herbalism because I was a massage therapist for a long time, but just a lover of all things holistic health. And yoga and herbalism are actually two of my favorite aspects of holistic health. Can you talk about your study of herbalism and how you combine the two in your studio?
Sure. Yeah. So, for me, the love of plants started before my knowledge of yoga. So, as a child, I spent a lot of time outdoors. My parents would sort of kick me and my brother out, be like, "Go outside and play." And so, the plant world became like a refuge and became a source of lots of inspiration.
Okay.
So when I moved to Asheville, North Carolina in 1997 to go to college, it was in the mountains. It's a very hippie progressive school, and there were a lot of herbalists. So I started to get exposed to a number of different um, herbal teachers. I started learning more about the plants.
Okay.
That's also when I started learning and studying yoga. So, for me as a nature lover, like thinking about yoga and the yoga poses, many of them are animal, they're named after animals. They're named after images in nature like mountains or trees.
Okay.
Um, and so, it was as the years went on, once I completed my graduate studies in herbal medicine,
Mhm.
and I was a practicing herbalist, I just kept feeling like, oh, my these two worlds are they feel very separate. How do I bring them together?
Yeah. Mhm.
Because I love them both, and I know that there's a way to do it that would be honoring of each as an individual tradition. So I started with teaching retreats. That was my first way of blending them. So I would invite other guest speakers, and I would teach plant walks, and we would do yoga. And so that was like kind of the first way, and we would, learn about herbs or make like herbal formulas and things like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then when we opened up Sky House Yoga, I was like, well, I want to get even more intentional about this. I really want to find an even bigger way to merge and blend these two. So I started teaching plant spirit yoga. And that is a class where I teach on one particular plant. So, like, let's say I would choose, for example, like cinnamon, and I would
Okay.
teach about the history of cinnamon bark, the medicinal uses. Then I would blend a tea or brew a tea, and then all the students would all drink it and actually get a taste of the plant medicine. We'd
Okay.
sit with it, and then we would do a practice that works alongside with the healing properties of the plant. So,
Okay.
cinnamon is a great circulatory tonic, it's a digestive aid. So we would do a yoga class that worked on, increasing circulation, getting blood moving, and then also twists and things that would help for the internal organs and digestion. And
Oh,
so my hope was that people would then have the experience of the plant and the
wow.
practice.
Mhm.
And I know for myself, I'm a very kinesthetic learner. Like I have to do things in order to actually learn.
Mhm.
Like I can read things a million times and it
I'm
just
the
doesn't
same
stick. So
way. Yeah.
so for many of my students, they find that they actually really remember the
Okay.
plant by just learning one at a time, tasting it, getting that physical sensation and experience of the taste, the aroma, the feeling of the plant, and then doing movements that then kind of help to stamp in what those physiological actions are.
Okay.
And then they leave the practice feeling like, after cinnamon, feeling warmer and
Okay.
feeling like they've worked out any digestive kinks. And then that they'll remember that. And my hope is that then they can go on and next time they have a little stomach ache, they can brew themselves some, ginger tea or some cinnamon tea, or they can use that plant wisdom at home or teach it to their friends. And so far,
Okay.
it seems like it's been working.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And it's interesting because they've always seemed yoga and herbalism have always seemed connected to me as well. But I've never I'm trying to think, just make sure I'm saying this accurately, but I don't think I've come across anyone who's combined the two practices, in a yoga studio. So I love that. I think that sounds really awesome. So talk a little bit more about your self-care practices. You're teaching herbalism, you're teaching yoga. How do you maintain your own balance as you're teaching others?
Yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing process. Like, I
Mhm.
can't say like I've got it figured out
Right.
completely, but yeah, I mean, one thing that I used to do that really was not serving my health was being really rigid with my schedule. Like I used to be very much like, okay, I'm going to wake up at 7:30, I'm going to do my yoga practice, I'm going
Mhm.
to, I would schedule out my whole day,
Right.
and I didn't realize how stressful that was. So one
Mhm.
of my self-care practices I've had over the last, I would say probably about year and a half, has been to not set an alarm in the morning and like let myself actually wake up when I wake up,
Oh
and
wow.
try not to overschedule myself and just give
Okay.
myself like free time to just
Mhm.
sort of be alive and be in
Mhm.
my life.
Right.
And like I trust that my yoga practice, like I'll find a place where the time will open and then I'll practice rather
Okay.
than like getting it so structured that I would get stressed, like thinking about practicing, like that's like not really why you practice yoga.
Okay.
And then I also brew myself daily herbal infusions, and that's something that one of my herbal teachers, Susan Weed, taught me, and that's basically like using like a 3/4 to or half to 3/4 of a cup of a single herb, and
Okay.
then putting that in a mason jar and steeping that overnight. And I usually use nettles or I really have been into red clover lately and burdock root, but just like making myself really nourishing herbal infusions that I drink throughout the day in addition to drinking water.
Okay.
And I find that a lot of kind of the, emotional things that would come up or even like physical symptoms that would come up have gone down dramatically since taking herbal infusions because I'm getting all the minerals, nutrients, vitamins, and phytochemicals that my body really, I think, needs. So
Okay.
that's been very important too.
Okay, that sounds amazing. So you set it to brew overnight. You put the loose herb in like a mason jar and then it's ready in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have to refrigerate it or you just leave it out?
No, I mean, you really want it to steep for about 8 hours. And actually,
Okay.
what happens even overnight, even if you steep it up to like 10 or 15 hours,
Okay.
is that you do actually start to get some probiotics that start to grow in there. So you get actually healthy bacteria, which you need for your gut health. So
Okay.
it's actually a good thing to let it sit out. Now, after about 24 hours, it starts to like bubble and starts to taste like a marsh. So that's when you know you're like, too long.
Okay. Okay.
It's past that time. But usually, if you let it steep 8 to 10 hours, and then I'll just drink it throughout the day, and that
Okay.
seems to be fine. And it's usually when I get to that second day that it starts to get a little bit funky.
Okay, okay. Yo, I love that. That sounds awesome. And I love having it prepared the night before so that when you wake up in the morning, you can just kind of go like you already had it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. So, talk a little bit more about your practice. I know you use a donation-based model for your business. How does that work?
Yeah, well, so we opened Sky House as a donation-based business for a few reasons. One was that my husband he had been living in New York City, and his astrology school and astrology practice was all donation-based. And so his philosophy was that while he was a newer in his field,
Mm-hmm.
like he wanted to make astrology accessible, and he also wanted to see like kind of what people would pay for an astrology reading.
Okay.
Also in New York City, there's a lot of donation-based studios. So when Adam and I met, he had this donation based model, and I had been doing my very first yoga classes I taught were actually donation based too at my workplace. So I had some experience with it, and what was really cool, I think, that I learned through the process of taking donations is that like there's plenty and and that people are inherently generous
Hmm. Okay.
and people really do give what they can, and they give according to what they have, and
Okay.
also the value that they place on the service. And
Okay.
so by not fixing a value on it and saying, okay, this is how much I value this product or this service for, and leaving it open to the person who's receiving, I don't know, like there's something that I think it creates more of a dialogue, and I think it creates also a thought around, well, how much like how much is this service worth,
Okay.
and how much can I afford, and we never turn anyone away. So we set donation ranges, but there's always times and when someone's like, like my husband just lost their job, or someone who just can't afford that lower end, and because other people are able to donate at the higher end, it always works out.
Okay. Okay.
So the model's been very successful. And I also really love it because it kind of goes with the natural cycles of nature. Nature is not fixed ever. So, within any ecosystem, there's always flux. And with the donation based model, like our income as a business is in flux always. I can never say, well, I project that we're going to be here or there. Nature doesn't allow you to really project like that. So, in this way, it's like I'm more of like a steward of the business, and I'm just paying attention and saying, okay, well things are getting a little bit lower. What can I do? What can I give to the business to make it a little bit more fruitful now?
Okay.
Or wow, things are really fruitful. How do I sustain this?
Okay.
And for me, it creates a dialogue between me and the business. So the business isn't this static thing, but it's like a living organism.
Okay, okay, that's amazing. I love that you compare the flow of it to nature, and that it does become more of a dialogue where you're more involved instead of projecting or forcing. It kind of reminds me of what you were saying about your day, your yoga practice. Like you don't force it at a certain time. You're kind of more in a flow of, okay, where does this fit today, or where can I do this today? So financially, that the donation based model, because I think a lot of people would be afraid, like, oh my gosh, financially it wouldn't work out. But you're saying financially it does work out. Like,
Financially, it does work out.
okay,
Yeah, like we actually recently started having no minimum donation. We used to have a donation range of $12 to $20 per class,
okay,
and we decided we had one day, Save a Sundays, where we would have no minimum donation, and that Sundays were our busiest days. We're like, well, no minimum donation seems to really work. Let's make all the classes no minimum.
okay,
And then suddenly everything started to build, and we had one day where a gentleman walked in off the street, like he saw somebody walking down Fenton Avenue with a yoga mat, and he's like, "Oh, yoga!" And she's like, "Yeah, there's a new place right down the road."
right,
And so he came in with his khakis on, and he's like, "I don't have any money," and we were like, "No problem, go ahead, and come in, have a mat, take the class."
right,
And then that very same night, in the very next class, a gentleman came in and donated $50, and he said, "I just love what you guys are doing. This
right.
is incredible. I'm so glad you're here. Please take this donation." So it's just it's like it becomes magical. The business
Right,
model becomes magical because you're not predicting where things are going to come from, but you're trusting that they're all going to come in. And it's our hope is it's because we're doing the work we love, and all of our teachers are doing something that they love, and we hope that that's just it creates an inspiring environment for people to come into and want to do their work in as well.
okay. I love that you mentioned the word trust, because I feel like that's sort of a theme of this conversation. Like trusting, that you can take the leap of faith to start your own business. Even with your partner, creating that trust between you two that you could work on this business together, and even the donation based model. How are you so trusting, for lack of better words? How do you sort of trust the process so much?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I can't say it's always been easy. I mean, there's been
Okay.
times where I've been like hanging on tooth and nail, like,
Like
like,
so
oh
many
my
of us.
God, why, like, is this really going to work? So
Right.
it's not, I don't want it to seem like, oh, it's all, I just trust in the universe and it's all okay. I mean, there are challenging moments
Mhm.
within that
Mhm.
challenge your faith and challenge your trust. But I think for me, I just like keep coming back to like in the present moment, I'm okay. Like
Okay.
right now, I'm okay. And I have everything I need. There's nothing more I could ever want for. And, um, even when things were a little bit tight, when we first started the business, um, just time and time again, like people came through and would be very generous, and it just I think what it's I would say like in the last year, my trust and faith have really multiplied
That's awesome.
because I took that leap and I allowed myself kind of belly up to be like, okay, let's see what happens,
Mhm.
and I didn't go back to the other jobs. Like I stuck with it, and I think that trust really it's like a muscle. Like you kind of have to work it.
Okay.
It's like a yoga pose. You have
Right,
to just
right.
keep practicing it, and it
Okay.
gets easier every
Okay.
day.
Okay, I love that. Yeah, it reminds me of when I did have my massage practice. And like the first 6 months, I would be really busy the first 3 weeks of the month, and then the last week, nothing. Like not a client, not a phone call. And it took me a while to realize that this was a rhythm, because that fourth week, instead of resting, which, when you're doing massage or even yoga, like when you have such a physical job, you need the rest. I would like just market like crazy and
Mhm.
try to force the business or whatever. And then it never felt that next week I would be booked again. And it took me a while to realize that and to trust the process. But I agree with you. Once you do sort of the stress goes away and you realize that you'll be taken care of. So yeah,
Yeah,
I love
and I think that's a really good point because,
it.
I used to do the same thing when things were slow. I would like react to it.
Right.
Like, okay, well, what do I need to
What do I
do?
need to do?
But, really, in a way, now it's like, oh my gosh, the universe is giving me a few days off.
Right.
Like, like
Exactly.
these are down days. Like, thank you. Like, we all need those.
We
So,
do.
and I think in
Yeah.
this culture, we don't value that as much. Like, we don't really value rest and replenishment. And
Mhm.
so, the hope is, my hope is that like through our work and yeah, that like it's just reminding people that like you can rest, you can take time off, and that trusting that the flow will like the next wave will come.
Right.
You
Right.
just don't get to control when it
Right.
comes.
Right. Yeah. Very true. Very true. Oh, I love that. So I have a few questions that I always ask every guest, and these are kind of my surprise questions. So just answer them with whatever, whatever comes to you first. But the first question is, what is your favorite book?
Oh boy, that's a good one. Um, my mind, it's so funny where my mind goes to A Wrinkle in Time by
Okay.
Madeline L'Engle, which is a book I read as a kid. And I
Okay.
think that book really sparked my imagination and just got me thinking outside of, um, regular time and space and about the power of friendship.
Okay.
Um, and the fun of adventure. So I think that book just always has stuck with me as one of my favorites.
Okay.
Um, and then I definitely think like The Life of Pi was a fun adventure. I liked books
Oh.
that take me somewhere. Like I really like
Mhm.
going someplace new and on an adventure with a book.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I love Life of Pi too. I've never heard of A Wrinkle in Time, so I'm gonna have to check that one
Uh-huh.
out. That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Awesome. Okay, second question is what is your favorite guilty pleasure?
My favorite guilty pleasure?
Yes.
Oh gosh, I have some. I'm a Taurus, so if anyone out there knows astrology, Tauruses love pleasure. So,
Okay.
um, well, I mean, I love chocolate, like hands down. I can go through serious amounts of chocolate in a short period of time. So I
Okay.
think that's one of my guilty pleasures.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't own a television for about
Oh.
12 years.
Oh
Just never
wow.
lived with one
Okay.
from college all the way up until like the last few years. So, um, sometimes I think a guilty pleasure of mine will be like watching like a fashion TV show, like
Okay.
Project Runway or things like that, which is like
Okay.
it's not in my normal realm of work. So
Mhm.
there's something about that it just sort of transports me into, I guess, like another world, kind of like the books. Like I enjoy like stepping outside of the routine as much as I can. And that's, like I said, like that's kind of been a newer thing, but I'm really enjoying that, like those sorts of realms, if you will. So that those would be mine, chocolate and then
Okay.
Project Runway.
Runway, right? That's awesome. Yeah, I think chocolate hits the list for a lot of us. Okay, awesome. And the last one is, what about a habit that you had to kind of hardwire into your life that has helped you become successful? Something that wasn't really natural to you per se, but that you had to kind of learn to do.
Hmm. I think the word that comes up is tenacity,
Okay.
as a habit. I mean, as a kid, I was always um, I was kind of a tough kid. I played soccer and
Okay.
lacrosse. Um,
I played lacrosse too.
did you? Yeah, I loved playing sports as a kid.
Mhm.
Like I'm so grateful for those experiences. But I went through a period where like I played goalie for soccer and I was like not very good at it and I kept losing the game for the team and it was just really like hard on me and I just remember like thinking like I've got to see this through. I can't stop now. And so I think a theme for me like is like don't give up and
Okay.
like my habit has been tenacity.
Okay.
Because I think I've seen a lot of people and colleagues who like have these great ideas and
Mhm.
then they get discouraged and it's like we all get discouraged and I think it's normal to like get discouraged when you're working on something that's really challenging.
Mhm.
But I think that the habit of like really being tenacious and like determined and um, that's been a habit that's really helped me kind of get through the tough spots.
Okay. Okay. I love that. Yeah, that's an awesome example. And the soccer example, that's awesome. Awesome. So tell us, what do you have planned for your business? What do you have coming up?
Well, let's see. We've continued our no minimum donation offering until the solstice. So we call it
Oh,
Seva to the solstice, and Seva is a Sanskrit word that means um, selfless service, so just like an
okay.
offering. So we're going to continue that, and we may continue it through the new year. So we're going to just see how that goes. We're still kind of watching the tides.
Okay.
um, and then Sky House has also partnered with the YMCA in Bethesda, which is a really exciting partnership. And we're going to be offering a yoga teacher training program
Ooh,
at the YMCA for
okay.
a really low cost.
Okay.
So they've been very generous to let us use the space.
Mhm.
So the overhead is really low, so we can keep the cost low for people who normally couldn't afford to take a yoga teacher training.
Okay.
And there's also childcare off
Oh,
given for free. So like a lot of stay-at-home
okay.
moms, the program is offered in the afternoons, and
Okay.
childcare is like right down the hall.
Oh,
So we
nice.
just I when they came to us and said, hey, there's this opportunity. Would you want to partner? And as they told me about it, I was like, well, like we really want to make sure yoga's accessible, and we
Mhm.
were like, this is a great way to partner and make it less expensive, and then also to offer it to people whose schedules don't allow them to do weekends.
Right. Right.
So that's something that's exciting.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that for kind of what's ahead, we have our herbal apprenticeship program.
Okay.
So I'm continuing my own herbal studies because it's a never-ending journey.
Yes. Yes.
So I want to continue studying herbal medicine on my own and continue to grow the apprenticeship course
Okay.
to teach people about how to use herbs for their friends and family and within their communities, because I think
Okay.
it's just something that is an easy way to
Mhm.
kind of boost health and wellness.
Okay.
So I'm going to continue to work on that, and who knows? I mean, I think part of the beauty of the model is that it's open to shifting and change.
Yes,
So we'll kind of
evolving.
see what will happen in
Okay.
the next 5 years.
Okay, I love that you're offering childcare for your yoga teacher training. I may have to look into that. That sounds awesome. Yeah, it looks like you have some exciting things coming up. Do you usually do any type of celebrations for the solstice, like the winter solstice or anything? You do?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Last year we had a big kirtan party and potluck at the
Okay.
studio.
Okay.
And then this year we're having an Acu Yoga Bliss workshop. So it's a yoga class
Mhm.
coupled with acupuncture.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
Okay.
so we're going to be offering that this December 21st. I think it starts at 7:30. And just a way to the acupuncture treatment and the yoga class are designed around like the idea of winter and going into the in acupuncture the space of the kidneys, which is sort of the deep storehouse, the wellspring of like your own sort of your like own deep reserves of energy. So we're going to be
Okay.
doing lots of like just really relaxing restorative yoga.
Okay.
And really work those kidney points to help then, the very next day, the light starts to build again. So just
Okay.
making sure that the storehouse is full
Mhm.
as we
Mhm.
go and start to build our way back to spring.
Okay, that's awesome. I love that. Awesome. Well, we are almost out of time. So, thank you so much
Thank
for being
you.
here with us. If people want to get in touch with you or find out more about your work, where can they go?
They can go to skyhouseyoga.com.
Okay.
And that's all together. So skyhouseyoga.com. And we're also on Facebook, and we're on Instagram, and we're on Twitter. So people can, and we really do like to stay involved in social media. So we always have things that we're posting and blogging about. So, if people are interested in the work we're doing, they can stay connected with us that way.
Okay, that sounds great. And we'll be sure to put a link to that below. So, you can just
Okay,
click
thank
on the
you.
link below. What did you have any last thoughts on courage, herbalism or yoga?
Well, I guess if I were to have a closing thought, it would just be go for it,
Okay.
And but I would also say wait for the right timing, because I think there's like a critical mass. Like I think we get, it's like trusting that as soon as we get to a place where we know it's time, that's when we make the move, and not too soon when we, like. So
Mhm.
that would be my only advice, because I think we waited right until the right time, and things really opened up from there. And I couldn't have done it a year earlier.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, I think that perfect timing is essential because things do open up. Like even if you're afraid or nervous, things
Mm.
open up and it's yeah, it's awesome. So, well, great, Ashley. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Kiana. Me too. This was really great.
Awesome. Well, that was another great episode, another great courage conversation. But the conversation doesn't have to end here. Go ahead and head over to crazycourage.com. And our question of the week is I would love to know what you're going to be tenacious about this week. How are you going to practice tenacity this week? So leave a comment below this video and let me know the answer to that question. And until next week, I wish you much love, joy, and crazy courage. All right, it's giveaway time. We are giving away a copy of Nick's book, Work Smarter. So the winner of this week's giveaway is Cheryl Miner. Congratulations. So what we're giving away next week is a yoga mat in honor of having Ashley on our show today. We know that physical fitness and yoga is super important to living a courageous life. To enter this giveaway is super easy. All you have to do is leave a comment below answering our question of the week. This week's question of the week is, what are you going to be tenacious about this week? Thank you so much for joining us. While you're at crazycourage.com, go ahead and sign up for our email list where you'll get training on how to be your most courageous self. Don't forget that Crazy Courage TV airs every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. We look forward to seeing you soon. If you enjoyed this video, like and share it with your tribe. We'll see you next week for another courageous conversation. Until then, I wish you much love, joy, and crazy, crazy courage.